we're going to make some miniature scenery. I started by 3D printing a model and cutting a base out of a piece of medium density fiberboard. First, we'll prime our parts with black spray paint. Spray paint sticks to the plastic surface very well and will provide a great base color. I've decided the finished model will be a sandy color, so my first step is painting on a slightly darker layer. I mixed brown and sand-colored paint and thinned it with water. Thinning paint is critical in achieving a smooth finish on models, hiding brush strokes, and letting me work faster as thin paint dries quickly. Thin paint also leaves dark details visible, adding depth to our model. For the fan, I want to cover the center, but only lightly color the blades. Next, I'll dry brush pale sand paint over the model. Dry brushing is a process where you brush out most of the paint and the dry bristles mostly apply color to raised details. Most of this model will be the same sandy color, but the fan blades and ventilation grills will be steel colored. I'm starting with natural steel paint, which is very thin, so I'll need 2 coats on each surface. The light coat of tan on the fan blades helps to make each blade brighter at the top and adds extra depth to an otherwise flat surface. When the natural steel is finished, I only have details left to paint on the model. I'm going to liberally paint a brown wash into the recesses of the model. This will add depth to corners and recessed edges around details, as well as giving it a grimy, weathered look. After adding the wash to the whole model, I'm going to apply a final dry brushed highlight to contrast the shadows. Only 2 colors to go now, and first I'm going to add some rust to my steel parts. I'll apply some orange red to the fan blades and ventilation grills, and a second coat for brightness. Finally, I'm going to add a bright silver highlight to the steel edges and ventilation holes, especially at the edges of the rust. I'm imagining that the fan blades have a protective coating, but the leading edge scrapes sand in the air, stripping the edges down to raw steel and allowing it to rust when they stop spinning. I did 2 final steps off camera. The first was to darken the inner rim where the fan goes, since we can assume it gets pretty dirty when in use. The second step was to paint the entire model with a thinned matte varnish, which protects the paint but also removed any glossy finish from the wash and the steel paint. At this point, the model itself is complete, but I want to give it a base and some terrain. I'll glue the model to the base with super glue. Next, I'm going to brush on a special ground covering material, which will add a sandy, rocky texture to the base. The model shop I used was all out of dark gray ground covering, but this light gray material has about the same texture. I'll paint it all black, then a medium gray, then dry brush on light gray, and finally white. These steps add a huge amount of depth to the textured base and, importantly, match the other scenery I've made. Finally, I'll apply some static grass to the model for color, to break up the base, and to add extra realism. I spread out some PVA glue, which is white glue, then place the grass into it. Once this is dry, I vacuum up any extra grass strands. This piece is now ready to join the other pieces I've made and become a part of a detailed, futuristic tabletop battleground.